Welcome back to GymTube, everybody. Behind me we've got the 2023 Ducati Desert X, and in today's video we're going to be covering everything this bike's got to offer on the road. As you can see behind me, the bike's got off-road tyres on it, so they're the 50/50 tyres, the knobblies. They look great on an adventure bike like this, and in today's video we'll be covering all the topics around those tyres and how they perform in all conditions. I'm also going to be discussing all of the rider aids package on the bike, how the suspension works, how the bike rides at speed, how the windscreen works, just literally everything on the bike. So stay tuned, I'm going to get my helmet on and let's get out on the bike. Right, let's start this video off with the electrics on this bike, because it's one of the most impressive I've used. It's lean angle traction control. So we're on knobbly tyres. Let's show you what I mean by this. Knobbly tyres, wet weather. Look at that! It's going to national speed limit and it's just, look, with third gear, round the corner. You can just give it full throttle and it does nothing. Now I'm going to show you what these tyres do with no traction control on in the video in a bit, but what an amazing system. That's set to the most invasive, so number 8 I believe, and just, look. You can go flat out. Now I think a lot of companies, I think Ducati in particular, say this isn't a failsafe, it's not going to stop you from falling off, but boy, I don't know what does, because these are super slippy conditions and I'm in the knobblies. Look, I'm flat out. Now the best thing is with this traction control, obviously you can just wind the throttle on full when you're at lean, because it's lean angle sensitive, so it will cut the throttle. You know, if I give it the beans now, look, it's just, look, it won't let you do it. That's set to 8. Now if you look here, I can hold this button and lift up what and it will show me what modes I'm in. Touring, and it says what I've preset the traction control and all the quick shifter and the wheelie control and ABS to. So touring traction controls on 8. Now I'll show you how to go through these modes later, but basically what you can do is you can actually just back that traction control off. So if you're playing around with it, you want to find the limits to the traction control, you can start on 8 and work down to 7, 6, 5, 4 till it gets to where you feel it's protecting you enough without being too invasive. And that's such a great system to work with, because you can really find the limits to how you want to do it. And then if you want to just go all out, you can just turn it off and you can play around like that, or you can have a preset to where you feel comfortable, what your level of comfort is on the bike, which is going to vary for everyone because they're all different abilities and what you want to get from the bike. So you may have a dry setting, a wet setting, fantastic, but that is, you know, the worst. We're on a 50/50 tyre here, so not the best grip, and it's wet and we got leaves and all that sort of, it's a bit autumnal, and it can save you. So it really is a good system. Love it, very good. And now you can see, this is the other cool thing about this bike. If you want to take it up a lane, you can just jump on it and blast up. And that's the great thing about having 50/50 tyres on, because you don't have to be faffing around with anything like changing them over. You can just jump straight off the tarmac into this and just enjoy yourself, you know. Take a little shortcut where you can, where you're allowed to, where it's legal, just like this little lane here, and we can just fly up, do a little shortcut and get to where you're going a bit quicker on your adventure bike. So adventures anyway, you know, this is just a local lane for me, and I can just blast up here on my way to wherever I'm going, and that's it. I would just like to discuss the blipper on this, and it's just such a good system. Up the gears, down the gears. What an awesome bike, awesome gearbox. But from first to second, it feels like it needs you to use the clutch. Third, onwards, fourth, fifth, sixth, it's absolutely crystal smooth, silky smooth. It's silky smooth. And as you go down the box, fourth, third, second, first, it's just absolutely perfect. But first, you see that it's quite jumpy. It's a big jump first, you know. So I'm not sure what's going on there with the gearbox in terms of the Desert X, because I think maybe it's just the ratio in first is very long, and the first to second with the quick shift, and maybe the cut time's just not quite enough, because it's quite a jolt. So yeah, that's what I found with the gearbox. In terms of that, I feel like it just needs a bit of clutch into first and second as you normally would, because and that's the only thing I can assume. I've done some research and I can't find anything about that, and this has just been for a service with Ducati, and I spoke to them about it and they were like, oh, that's just the way it is. So yeah, there's not much I can say about that, but yeah, I feel like between first and second you've kind of got to use the clutch with the quick shifter. So not the end of the world, but it's worth putting out there that isn't quite as smooth as some of the others. You know, the Panigale V4 I had, every gear was silky smooth, and that was just the best gearbox I've ever used on a bike. So yeah, I really liked it. But yeah, definitely worth noting that, to use the clutch between first and second. I think it would just prolong the life of the gearbox. Like I said, third or fifth is absolutely fine. So yeah, worth noting. While we're down here, one thing I'd like to just show you, everybody, is the turning circle on this bike is unbelievably good. So we come over here, we get full lock, you know, just run that on the front brake and the clutch. Look at that. You can just turn around on the spot. Fantastic. We'll do it again. There we go. Look at that. No need to get off. And this is I guess it's a narrow road, I'd say, but yeah, I was impressed with that. Very, very good turning circle on this bike. And now we're up to a bit more speed on these kind of roads. The bike, again, very comfy. Screen does a fantastic job of protecting your chest from the wind. And the shorter the screen, I found, is the better option on this one, because you get less of the wind tumbling and hitting your helmet, which you can get a little bit of vibration from. I noticed a lot of it on the Multistrada, and with the taller screen that this bike came with, that's actually worse than the shorter one. So, you know, I've got no serious air hitting my face here, so that's a good one. A good tip there is to try a smaller screen if you're being bothered. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one. I've read online there's a few people that are talking about it. So see, look at that, opening this flat out on these tyres, and it just, look at that, I'm on the front brake now, you know, and I'm leaning in on the knobblies in the wet, and we've got grip. So impressive. You know, give it some beans up here. Look at that, loads of grip. So yeah, as I said earlier, very impressed with the tyres on it. Let's take a left up here, around this corner. See if we can get a little bit of wheel spin coming out of here. See, even so, even if grip's an issue, you can still have a lot of fun with the bike, you know. Very fun indeed. I just feel like that you're not going to get that with like a Multistrada or something. You get that with this bike because you can play around with it a little bit, and you know, and do what you will with it. Put these tyres on it, and I feel the tyres just give that sense of delicacy. You know, you can't just send it into a corner that hard, because you've got to really feel where the grip is. And that's one thing I'd want to talk to you all about, and that is modern tyre technology. And I feel like it's getting so good, it's almost spoiling the fun of riding bikes, because to find the limit of modern tyres, you know, like the Pirelli Supercorsa V2, wherever it is that I had on that Panigale, like the road limit of that tyre is just disgusting. And I kind of just feel like the less grip you have, the more you feel like you're on the limit of bikes. And I get, for some people, they don't want to find the limit on the road, but some people do, and they don't want to be riding like crazy speeds where you're going to go to jail if you get caught for it. They just want to have fun and push the bike a little bit and feel something back, you know, feel like, oh, the back steps out a little bit there, or the front jumps across the floor a little bit there, and you're not pushing like rocket speed. So I do feel like knobblies on a bike like this just like reduce that level of speed to find the limit, so you're almost riding a bit safer. You're riding way within more of the limits of the speed limit, and you can just enjoy the bike just as much. I feel like a lot of enjoyment from a bike, finding the limit of it, isn't about how fast you're going, it's just about feeling what the bike's doing and pushing that bike to the limit. So yeah, modern tyre technology, I've got mixed opinions about that, especially on the road. So I'm a big fan of these adventure bikes with knobbly tyres on, because you really do get the most out of the bike and really enjoy it. And as you saw just then, we can just go off road and play around, so good fun. The riding position of this bike, now it's one of the most comfiest bikes I have ridden in a long time. At the minute I've got a Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE, and this bike just seems to just deliver that comfort that kind of bike's missing. And as you may have seen on my other video, I've just test rode the Multistrada V2, which again was very similar in terms of comfort wise this, but the way the tank on this bike just sort of fills your legs, it really does make a difference. You know, you can sit up front here and it feels like you're holding this big bike, and it doesn't feel big when you're riding it. It's heavy to push around, but when you're riding it does feel very nimble. But the actual position itself, the bars, they've got a slight taper to them where they go down. It makes your arms a bit more of a relaxed position. Yeah, I think it's a lovely position to ride on. I mean, I've done the Wales trip on this, as you may have seen in the other video, and no issues with comfort whatsoever on that. You know, I think I did like a 5-hour stint on the way there, maybe 5.5, and it was, obviously I had breaks here and there, but super comfy. And just a great riding position. I've reduced the height of this screen, which helps with the wind buffeting on your head. So it's actually, all in all, a very good riding position for touring. And when you get tired, you can stand up like this, and you can sort of put your knees leaning forward on the tank, and you can stretch your legs a bit, and it just feels like a real good position standing up like this. You don't feel like you're about to fall over the front of the bike because the bars are quite high, so your position's really nice for just stretching your legs a bit, which you're going to do on long rides, which ideally this bike's really for. You know, you want to do your missions, you want to go on your trips and get around on it. And all the like user confinements are just so great on it. You know, you got all the traction control, you can adjust it on the go, your engine modes, your maps. Right now we've got it set to this, so all you do is you hold down that button there and you can just go straight into your mode. So rally mode I've got set to low power, because it's really good for off-road. That we'll go into those later. And then you've got your enduro mode, which is full power, and I've got all the traction control off and all that sort of stuff. I quite like that. And to change modes, all you have to do is just shut the throttle and it changes. So that is very handy to be able to do that. And these are all your presets which you set up before you leave home or whatever. Oh, sorry, we've got to change that back there, haven't we? Into touring, close the throttle. There we are. So yeah, very handy, all of this stuff. Heated grips, I've got them on at the minute. It's a bit chilly today. You may have seen that I'm riding in the rain, and that is because I want to show you what these tyres are like, which are the Karoo 4s. They're a 50/50 tyre, which I absolutely love, and I get on really well with them. And we'll go into the tyres in a bit. But let's just carry on with your sort of switch gear and everything. The indicator switch, really nice. I like it. You can just click it there. You don't actually have to get your finger on top. So you can go to the left or right, turn it on. You can actually just push there on the side, which is kind of nice because you can just nip your thumb on it like that. That's really handy. I really like that feature. Quick shifter in the blipper, again, as on most Ducatis, it's pretty seamless. It works really well. So I like that a lot. Don't know why we're in touring mode, because traction control's on. They may have seen it flashing on the light. I don't like to have it on. Just gives you a bit more full power all the time in slippy conditions like this. Cruise control, that's great. You can increase the speed, set it. That works really well. I love that. So yeah, you've got all your modes on here. Very nice and handy. Great riding position, one of the best. I mean, as an adventure bike, I'm more biased towards this than the V2, and you'll understand by the end of this video as to why I feel like that. But it's just such a great bike, and it's so comfy. The V2 is very precise. You know, I feel like you could ride that bike very fast on a road, on a twisty. This thing, it sort of slows you down a bit. You don't really want to ride it as fast. You're kind of happy just, you know, using the grunt of the engine and just jumping around on it. But I'm not sure what it is about this, but I just love the whole big suspension. The bike's quite bouncy, and when you're riding it, it feels a bit looser. You wallow around a bit. I kind of like that loose feeling of the bike, and the looks for me of this, oh, I don't know, I just absolutely love it. I think it's gorgeous, the way those front lights look. I like the rear end on it. I like everything about the looks of this. On the Multistrada, I'm just not sold on the whole like smaller wheel thing. I think this bike just suits everything with the big front wheel, 21-inch. I don't know, I really rate it, and I just think it's a great looking bike, and it's more up my street. So I'm very biased towards this bike, as you may already tell, but it rides well, and you can have all the fun on this just like you can on a Multistrada. You know, you can blast this thing and really open it up. So, and on the topic of opening it up and blasting it, let's go into the engine. See, that's the powerhouse of this bike, and you know, right now I've got a Ducati link pipe on the bike and it just sounds awesome. You know, I'll show you now, look. It does sound good. It pops and bangs a bit more than the stock one, and it's just a little bit louder. You know, you want to be heard when you're coming, so I think it's great. And it just adds to the character of the bike. I really, really enjoy the sound of it, and it just livens up that engine. It makes the bike what it should have been from the factory, I think. So yeah, the engine, that's probably the only thing that I've got a sort of a negative thought about on this bike. And it's not the end. The engine is an absolute masterpiece. It's awesome. However, you can see here it's revving up to 10,000 RPM, and on the road I think that's great. You know, if you want to blast the bike and fly around on it, it's really racy. But I feel off-road, that's just a bit too much RPMs. I don't know, that it just seems like this is like a race engine in an off-road bike, that if you could hold this just completely wide and flat out off-road, then it'd be great. But it's got a lot of power, so it is a real proper touring bike. You know, when you're going to cruise along the motorway, you're going to sit at a low RPM and you're not racing the engine, and then when you want to go down the twisties, you can give it the beans. But there's something about the off-road side of the engine it's just a little bit, I kind of would rather, you know, like you've got the Africa Twin, and that doesn't rev quite as high, and it's the parallel twin engine, and it pops and bangs, and I'm not sure, there's just something about the feel of this engine. It's very peaky. That's the only sort of negative I could really point out on this bike, and obviously it's not really a negative, but it's just more a sort of thing where I think off-road I'd kind of rather a bit less RPM, and a bit shorter gearing, you know, so you're going through the gears a bit more. Like as you saw on the off-road video when I took this to a motocross track, you could literally leave it in first and second, and I kind of just wanted to go through the gears a little bit more with the riding. But first gear, you can go so fast in it. You know, I'll show you now. We'll pull out of here. What does it get up to in first? You know, 50 in first easily. So yeah, don't know how I went to neutral there, but it did. But you know, look at this. Let's go on to the tyres now. Now I've got the Karoo 4s on this, and I did want to touch on this subject because it's wet today, and this is ideal. Normally I wouldn't do a review in the wet because I like riding bikes in the dry, but because of these tyres, this is a perfect opportunity for me to show you what they're all about. In the dry, these are great. The Karoo 4's got plenty of grip. It's a fantastic 50/50 tyre. I think it will wear down a bit too quickly for a road type. You're doing loads of road miles and you're giving it loads of throttle, you know. It's going to square those knobbles off pretty quickly. Well, round them off, sorry. But in the wet, the Michelin that was on it before, the Aoocci Wild, was terrible. I had that on when I went to Wales, and it was good in the dry, but as soon as the roads are wet, it was super dodgy. And these are much better in the dry and the wet than the Aoocci Wild tyre, so that's quite interesting. So that's the Metzeler Karoo 4. But I just wanted to give you an example here of when they are in the wet and you've got traction off. You know, first gear, they still do just spin up. You know, that's just straight up spinning. Second gear, look at that, no wheel spin in second, and that's quite impressive for a 50/50 tyre. You know, if I can maybe give it a bit more abuse here, no wheel spin whatsoever in second, and it's really impressive, that, because for a 50/50 tyre you haven't actually got much contact patch on the road. But you know, first gear is aggressive, it just spin up straight away, and I'm sure in second gear if you gave it a bit of clutch, yeah, it will spin up in second. But it's a great tyre. It works, it does exactly what it should, and you can kind of get away with it. Now the reason that I've got these tyres on this bike is because I think they look so good compared to just your normal road tyre. I can't look at these bikes with a normal road tyre on them. They just don't look right. When they got the knobblies on, they look so cool. But as I said, if I was doing a big road miles trip, I'd probably stick some normal road tyres on them. But for just pottering around and doing your 5-6 hour trips here or there to Wales, these are absolutely fine, and they work really well. and that's the Metzeler Karoo 4. I'd choose that as a 50/50 tyre over the Michelin Anarchy Wild, because of the on-road perks of it. It rides so much better on the tarmac than the Anarchy Wild. It's much more solid, it's not as loose, it doesn't wander around the roads. You can't feel that you've got them on, there's no vibration through the bars. So yeah, a fantastic tyre. And off-road, we were using them at Ashdown Farm on the motocross video I did of this, so hey, they work absolutely spot on there. You know, we have plenty of grip. Yep, granted it wasn't pouring with rain, but that place is an absolute ice rink when it's wet anyway, no matter what tyre you've got on. So I think these would work just fine for, you know, your touring and your off-road here or there, going through the woods or whatever. They're absolutely awesome tyre. So yeah, highly recommended. What now? Suspension on this. You know, going back to the suspension on it, I absolutely love the suspension on this. I love how it's super smooth. You know, when you're riding, you cannot feel any of these road bumps. It's so smooth, it glides over them. And yeah, like when you brake, look, the bike does dip down. But when you go in the corners, like I said, it's kind of nice. You know, the bike sort of wallows around a little bit. It's really cool. I really enjoy the suspension on this, and think it's a fantastic setup, because it handles off-road, as you saw in the motocross video, extremely well. And on the road, you know, yeah, you don't get the same feedback and sort of knife edge feeling that you would from a multi-strada, but then, you know, that's kind of the character of it. And I love that. You sort of jump on, you've got this big bike between your legs, and you just sort of muscle it around a little bit. You know, it takes a bit more counter steering to get it to change direction, and it's got a load of character. There's so much character in the bike, and I feel that's just, for me, that's where it sets it miles above the multi-strada. And I feel like you could do everything on this you could on a multi-strada. You could do a 2,000, 3,000 mile trip. You know, you could stick panniers on the back here and tie all your bags on it. It can do all that. So yeah, very cool. I love all of it. So the suspension's good. Headlights. Let's move on to the headlights for night riding. I did a video. I actually had a set of Colite LED lights on this. The link to those will be in the description of the video, and I use those on some night riding. The headlights on this are great. They are actually really good, but if you go put a set of auxiliary lights on the bike, then it just completely changes the bike. But out of the factory, headlights are very good. I'm happy with them. Night riding's nice on this, so, and they look cool. The coolest looking bike. This has got to be the coolest looking ADV bike there is. It looks so cool. Like, you know, it's kind of taken after the Kajiva Elephant, and it just looks so nice. You know, I love the Africa Twin as well. I'm yet to do a review of one of those. I'm going to do one in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned for that, and yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching now, because I really want to do more of these videos, and it helps so much more if I've got a few of you supporting me. So hit the subscribe button, get your notifications on, and any comments, obviously, to what we're talking about, drop them in the comment section below. Let me know. Have you ridden one of these, maybe a Honda Africa Twin, that sort of thing? Let me know what you think. Now, final topic to discuss on this road ride is the clutch and the brakes. So we'll talk about the clutch. Clutch is one finger, like it actually is. I love this hydraulic clutch. It just feels so good. You can pull away with one finger, you can change gear with one finger. You've got the up and down blippers, so you don't really need to use it as you're going along, but sometimes I quite like to, because it just get me a bit more involved with riding. You know, when you're in a big long journey, sometimes it's nice to change gear with the clutch and keep yourself awake a little bit. I love the clutch. Clutch is great, very easy to use, and maintenance free, being hydraulic, which is cool, so I like that. The brakes, now that's a big topic on this, because initially I love them. You've got a big rear caliper, massive rear disc, which I love, because that just means you've got plenty of power for the rear brake. On the front, however, the discs are actually quite small in comparison to a lot of other bikes. However, they are unbelievably bitey, like really good, if anything too good. So on the road, obviously you want bitey brakes. You can never really have too strong brakes on the road, but off-road, these are, you know, you've got to be a bit careful with them. They're definitely one finger off-road. You know, you touch them, look at that, it just dips the bike down. They're very good, very bitey. They're genuine Brembo pads in there, so they're not some aftermarket ones, which is probably why they're performing as best they ever will. And yeah, I think they're a bit too bitey for off-road use. Now, on that video I did at the motocross track, The ABS was actually left on a tiny bit on the front. I actually ride with it off on the rear because I hate rear ABS. I feel like you can steer the bike with the rear in an emergency situation. You can do a lot with it. I don't like rear ABS, but I do like it on the front. I think it's a great idea. You know, coming into here, leaves on the road, it's wet, you put the brake on. I don't feel the ABS cutting that much, if I'm totally honest with you, because I'm quite good with the front brake and sort of modulating it and just sort of feeling what the road's doing. But when you do feel it, you go, oh right, okay, so that could have potentially saved me there. So big fan of ABS on the front of a bike, but turned down a bit. I don't like it cutting in all the time. And when cars slam their brakes in front, ABS on a bike can get very scary. You know, you slam your front brake on, if you do that and the ABS cuts in, I've nearly hit cars before because of the ABS. You know, when something's happened and I may have been traveling a bit too close behind them, and the ABS just sort of cuts the braking speed, and I'm like, I could have done that myself, but because I grabbed it initially quite tight, it cut in. And yeah, it's not always done on the locking up at the wheel. The ABS will cut in before the wheel locks up if it gets a big pitch on the bike, and that's not good. So that's why it's nice with Ducati to be able to reduce the ABS in the settings to the most little as possible, because then it only really works with the front wheel locking up. And that's kind of what you want. You don't want the ABS cutting in when you lift the bike and it's starting to get a bit of angle on the front end, because you haven't locked the wheel up there and you may be trying to stop as quick as possible and the ABS has just potentially caused a collision or something. So yeah, not cool. But yeah, that's it. That's all. That's covered the bike. I think I love it. I'm sure you've gathered from my opinion that it's a fantastic bike, and I really rate it. And I am actually selling this bike because I got it to do all this YouTube stuff on and do some content, but I can't afford a Ducati of this price to keep. It's just such a large amount of money. So I'm not in the fortunate enough position yet to do so. So we won't be keeping this bike, and I think the next bike I'm going to get to do more content on will be an Africa Twin, and I may make that my long-term bike, because you can pick them up for sort of 6,000–7,000, and that's within my budget of a motorbike for me to keep. So that's what we'll be doing next. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe button. Any questions or comments you've got, please leave them in the box below. I'm always in the comment section. I try to reply to as many as I can because I love speaking to all of you lot. And it's just it's a good community to sit there and chat away and listen to your stories and experiences and opinions. You know, sometimes you guys put opinions on there and I don't actually agree too much with it, but I can really see where you're coming from, and it sort of enlightens my brain to start thinking, actually maybe they got a point there, and then I start going down the rabbit hole of thinking about what you've said. And yeah, it's very helpful. So feel free, say what you like in the comments. I'll always entertain something. And if you've got any questions, there's no such thing as a stupid question, let me know. So thank you very much for watching. I've enjoyed making this one because I love this bike, and I really wanted to get the message across to you of how much I like it and how good this bike is. It really is. So I hope that as I've relayed that message in a way that's understandable, and maybe it's gonna sort of get your brains ticking and get you thinking maybe you'd like one of these bikes. You'd like to go buy one over something else, if you got the budget, that is, because second hand you can't get these cheap. So thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.